Hi, welcome to Taj's World of Books, and welcome to, I think this is going to be a weekly reading wrap-up, or it's going to be in a compilation of a bunch of different books that I've read this week that don't really fit any other place, because it's not in a series. There are one or two off books, but I don't know what this is, but let's just talk about books. How about that? Okay, so after that crazy introduction, I have no idea what I'm going to splice in. I think it's going to be a couple clips. We'll see what I do. I don't know. But right now what I want to talk about is an author that is very new to me, and this is Victoria Helen Stone. I have no idea how I got these books. I have no idea who told me about these books. I don't even know why I picked them up, but I did. And so they were on my shelf, so I was like, why not? Let's just read them. And you guys know that I usually go in blind to books. I hear maybe a snippet of something about a book, and I go, oh, that sounds interesting, and then I go and pick it up, and I put it on my TBR, and usually it's some months before I actually get to it because there's so many books on my TBR. And so when I do get to it, I don't remember what I've heard about it, and so I'm like, oh, this will be a pleasant surprise. And so I could dive into it from there. All right, so book one in this series, and as is the case, I don't think that this series is concluded, because this book was written in 2020, and it seems like it ends on a cliffhanger, and it seems like she set it up to write a third book in the series, but I haven't found anything online, but I think that that's the direction that it's going. So at any rate, so this book it's a psychological thriller, but there is a romance component to it as well. Let me say that. So this is about Jane, and the story starts off with Jane is grieving the loss of her best friend. And you learn that her best friend has died and you learn this pretty quickly. Meg is the best friend's name, and the best friend dies because she commits suicide. And Jane is on a a revenge spree to make the people pay who have caused her friend, in her eyes, to commit suicide. And so we quickly learn that Jane is a sociopath, and she has no emotion, she has no remorse, she recognizes that she's different, and she is okay with that, and she's made peace with it, and she doesn't really care, but she cared about her friend Meg, and now that was taken from her, and that is unacceptable to her, and she's going to go to whatever lengths it takes in order to ensure that the person who she believes has wronged her is going to pay. And the story takes off from there. Now, there is a romance element to this, in that there is a relationship that develops unexpectedly, and you find yourself rooting for that relationship, and you find yourself wanting Jane to find happiness. And whether she does or not, you have to read the book. It is absolutely a 4 out of 5 star. I thought it was good. I was on the edge of my seat. I was entertained. I was engaged in this story. She judges everybody very, very harshly, and she has no compunction about how she judges them. But it's very interesting, because the very things that she judges them for are similar things that she does herself, but she recognizes that about herself, and she also justifies it. At least I'm consistent, for example, or at least I don't try to present myself in the way that these people do. She comes from a very abusive background, and there is trigger warnings for neglect and abuse of a child, sexual abuse of a child, those sorts of things. And as a result, she feels as though that she was crafted or made into what she is now because of what's happened to her in her childhood. And so, you know, it's about her figuring out and trying to understand the world, as well as understand how she fits into the world, and make sense of why she thinks the way she does and why everybody else thinks in a different way, and she just doesn't get it and just doesn't understand. So it's a very, very interesting story nonetheless. So that's Jane Doe. And then the second book in this story is called Problem Child, and Jane is back again, and she now is navigating. She finds out, I don't want to give spoilers away, but she finds out that she has a niece, and she has to navigate what that means to her and what she's going to do about this. And she chooses to ignore this information because she's like, that has nothing to do with me, I don't care. But it does, in that she hears that this niece is exactly like her. And so when she hears that, she's like, I have to do something, because she views her race of people, sociopaths, as a specific sect of the population. And she looks at it like, we're out there and we are peppered throughout society, and we need to stick together and figure out how to navigate this crazy world. This also is a romantic suspense. It would probably be shelved under psychological thriller, but there is a romance component here as well. Is it the romance heavy? It's not romance heavy, but it's there, but it's more about Jane's sort of figuring out how to navigate relationships, all types of relationships, and what that means, and how do you do that, and how do you still, like, whether it's work relationships with colleagues, whether it's people that you meet in the diner, whether it's a significant other, whether it's the niece, whether it's whomever, it's how do you navigate that and appear normal and not appear to be like a cuckoo clock. So it's all about that. And so this, again, is a solid 4 out of 5 stars so far. This series is a 4. It's very interesting, like I said, because this ends on a cliffhanger, and so it leads you to believe, like, hey, what's coming up as a result of this? And so as a romance reader, this series, The Problem Child and Jane Doe, really was surprising, and because I tend to like romance heavy, but I needed something that was engaging, but not, I wanted something not so smut heavy, but it gave me romance, but not mafia, wasn't dark. And this gave me a lot. It gave me little elements of everything that I needed and everything that I wanted, but it wasn't like an onslaught of it all. So it was a perfect kind of palate cleanser for me to go into the next thing. So if you want a romantic suspense, you're interested in something a little bit different, check this out. They're short reads. You could read both of these in a day, honest to goodness, depending on how you read. I chose to drag them out. So I read one last night and went to go see fireworks, and then I read the other one this morning. So that is all that I have. So I will tack on some other books and things that we're going to talk about here in a minute. I'll see you over there. Okay, so the next book that I want to talk about in this sort of mashup of all this books that don't fit any other place, and I'm just putting them all together in this one video. I want to talk about J.R. Ward's Lover Unveiled. This is about Savage, and Savage is one of the brothers from the old country. This is classic J.R. Ward. She delivers in quite the same way that she does in all the other books. J.R. Ward is one of the first sort of forays that I've had into paranormal romance, and so I've read all of her books from book 1 to this book, and I'm going to say that it doesn't deviate much from any of the other books, and that's good and that's bad. It's good in the sense that you know what to expect. It's bad in the sense that I'm just like, it doesn't give me anything new or fresh. It's the same formulaic approach. It's about Savage. Savage is a bare knuckle fighter. It's his significant other or his significant love interest, May. He meets May at a bare knuckle match. She thinks she's looking for revenge. She thinks that Savage is revenge. It's kind of an enemies to lovers type situation. She's on a mission. She's looking for this book. He then doesn't want to have any relationships or entanglements. He has this story from the past that we're trying to figure out and understand. And I have to say that the thing that was really interesting about this, because this is considered a romance, is that it doesn't really culminate into anything until the last couple of pages. So it's one of those that's is it really a romance? The only thing I think that was interesting about this book, so I have to say, of all of J.R. Ward's books, this is the book that I liked the least of all of her stories. The one thing that's interesting is that it clearly set up a scenario for Lassiter's book. And it seems as though Lassiter is going to have some kind of connection with Savage's sister. The one thing that I did like about this book is that we got to see all the other brothers. We got to see Rage. We got to see Butch. We got to see, pretty much everybody. We heard a little bit from Core. We heard a little bit from Balthasar. We heard a lot from a lot of different people. But it just didn't deliver in the ways that I had anticipated. So for me, this is a 4-star because it's, I know the story. I love the Black Dagger Brotherhood. I will continue to read the Black Dagger Brotherhood, but it just didn't deliver in the way that I had anticipated or my reading taste my sophistication as a reader has stepped up, and so therefore I need more. So I hope she delivers in Lasseter's book. I'm really excited about it, and I'll hang in there with her for that. I'm going to save the best for last. I'm going to save the best for last of this whole review, and then I'm going to talk about this book. And I was warned, but I went ahead and did it anyway. So I tried out, I heard all the buzz several months ago about Seven Rue. I purchased this book way back then. It's been on my TBR. So I said, you know what? I felt like, let me just go into this blind and see what the heck this is about. So this is a age gap, and it is a 38-year age gap. She is 18 and he is 56. And he is the friend of her father, the best friend of her father. So, how do I say this? I don't care about the kinks. Some people had some challenges and difficulty with the kink in here. I don't care about it. It's whatever. The problem I have with this book is that it had no plot for me. All this book is about this super horny 18-year-old who wants to do whatever she wants to do under any circumstances. She works as a webcam girl, and she's super sexually expressive. And all she wants to do is seduce this older man that's the friend of her father's, and she wants to have sex with him. So this whole book is about sex. That's all they do, is have sex. They have no connection. They don't know anything about one another. They don't have any conversations. There's no plot. There's nothing. This book is about sex. And so for me, when I look at this, I'm just like, give me some substance. Give me some arc. Give me a character development. There's no arc. There's no development of Valley's personality. There's no development of Riggs's personality. It's all about him being an alpha and them sort of straddling this world of like BDSM and like breath play and all the other kinks that they have, and her working as a cam girl. And this to me could have been a novella. You could have given me this entire story in 79 pages and it would have been just fine, because it's a novella type story, but they put it in 500 pages. And I was like, why did I just spend 500 pages? Thank goodness I read really quickly, so this is just a night that I spent on this. But for me, it was not even worth it. I gave it a 3-star to be generous, but it probably is more like a 2-star. There's just no substance to this whatsoever. And it's interesting because I look back at all of her other books as well, and it seems like, and there's a lot of errors, grammatical errors in this book, and a lot of errors in the book, so the editing is not good. And I never want to tear down anybody's work, because this is her work. This is her profession. I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. So I respected the fact that she had the wherewithal to pull herself together as an author, to write a book, all the work that goes into that, like hands down, I couldn't do it. But for my taste in reading, if there were a mystery, if there was some suspense to it, if there were some angst between the characters, if there were some conflict that needed to be worked through, the conflict was really about, I want to continue to be a cam girl and I want to turn guys on and strip in front of guys, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Like, there just was no substance to this whatsoever. So I'm not going to waste any more breath on this. Pointless read. Don't waste your time. If you want it, I'll send it to you. That's that. Now, going on from senseless writing to really quality writing, my girl Kennedy Ryan delivered. She is the creme de la creme. She's like at the crescendo of writing. Her writing style has gotten better and better. Although for me, the Grip series is still my all-time favorite series, and also in her Hoop series, that book 1, Jump Shot or Hoop Shot or whatever the book 1 is about, those are like the top of it. But this book is really good nonetheless. This is about old Hollywood. It's about like the Dorothy Dandridge era. It's about Cannon and Neva's story. There's a lot of representation with chronic illness in here. This was very near and dear to my heart because my grandmother who raised me passed away from lupus. And so I was really, really pleased to hear the representation. I was pleased to hear, I buddy read this with a friend of mine, and my friend who is an actress is amazing. And she said, you know, this book is really making me confront my privilege as an actress. She goes, you know, when I go on set, I don't have to think about things like, what am I going to do with my hair? Or there's a scene in this book where that actually occurred with, not Dorothy Dandridge, it occurred with Billie Holiday, where she is so fair complected, and if the lights hit her a certain way, that they had just come off of the riots, if she would have gone on stage, they would have thought that she was white, and that would have been a problem, and so therefore she had to go out in blackface, so they made her put shoe polish on her face. And I just think that we have come so far, but we haven't come far enough. The fact that we're in 2021 and we have to have movements like Black Lives Matter, that we have to have conversations around how to respect women, that we have to have conversations around how to respect other people's cultures, that we have Asian people being attacked in the streets. This is enough. This is disgusting already. And to put people in these circumstances, and there was a part of this book where they were having a conversation, Desi and, you know, her husband, about leaving France. And you guys know that France is very near and dear to my heart and very close. You know, my son speaks French. I speak French. Like, it's very close to our heart. And they're having a conversation about leaving France and coming back to the United States to come to Alabama. And in my mind, I'm going, don't come back here. Don't come back here. You have a life there. And you don't have to worry about being discriminated against. And you don't have to worry about, you know, how people are going to judge you or whether you're going to have a cross burnt on your lawn. And the fact that Kennedy Ryan wrote this story, being a multicultural person that has dealt with various things in my life, I felt represented and I felt heard and I felt relevant in a world that often overlooks people and doesn't hear them and doesn't acknowledge their plight and just basically says, you're being sensitive. Don't worry about that. So she did this historical representation of what it's like to be a person of color in Hollywood and what it's like to be a person of color in the United States, while she also folded in this really beautiful story of love and forgiveness, love amongst siblings and love amongst a significant other, and facing your fears and facing boundaries and challenges and difficulties. And this is a piece of literary genius that I think everybody should read, and it's absolutely beautiful. And when you read a quality piece of work like this, and then you and then you read this, you're like, no comparison. I'm like all over the board. It's no comparison. So if you have not read, and it ends, it wraps up. It doesn't end on a cliffhanger. It is a beautiful story that I think that everybody should write. Like, this just takes it to a whole nother level. And her writing is just so beautiful, so beautiful. And the story, her storytelling, her prose, like everything about, like, this is just quality. I love it. I really do love it. And I loved the audiobook. The audiobook is like off the stratosphere in terms of the two actors that are in here, and I apologize, it's Jacoby, and I don't remember the female actress's name. They were the two that did Queen Move in her book before, so, and I don't remember the third actor, but amazing, amazing. Like, I can't speak. This is an absolute 5 out of 5 star, off the stratosphere. Probably will reach my 2021 top favorites for sure. This is a really, really good story. So if you haven't read it, please check it out. I think that you'll really like it. You guys, I never intend to get emotional like that, but that book was super emotional, and it seems like there's been like a couple of things that I've talked about with you guys lately that I'm like pouring my heart out to, and I never intend to do that. But I hope that you appreciate my ability to be raw and my ability to be vulnerable, and I don't know, it's not easy to do. Anyway, you guys, that is all that I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and you know, I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and so I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Thanks, bye.